So, by the time y'all see this, I will be well into my trip in France going to FNCS Globals. And as of right now, the time of this recording, which is a Monday, I couldn't be more excited. If for some reason this was the last time I ever made a video for you guys, I just want to say I love you and thank you for absolutely changing my life. The conversation that we're going to have today is one that's been on my mind for the last few months. And what's taken me so long to have this conversation is just me trying to figure out, like, what exactly do I think is wrong with Fortnite right now, even though I'm absolutely in love with this game. One thing I don't think I told y'all is that the big piece of content that I want to make for this trip is going up to every large content creator and asking them what they think is currently wrong with Fortnite. A lot of people this year have quit the game, they stopped making content, or they switched the game that they're making content on, or they're transitioning. This is a weird time for a lot of Fortnite content creators. Last week on the channel, we had a conversation with Mr. JOI, Pro Zero, and Loot Station about what was wrong with Fortnite, if we thought the game was dying. This video right here is kind of a follow-up to that, but also a prelude to the video that I'm planning on shooting for you guys in France with all those large creators. Before I talk to them, I want to get my thoughts on what's wrong with the game out there. That way, I'm able to better express myself when I'm having conversations with all of these people. And I've already gotten a lot of practice with talking to you guys on stream, which, by the way, if you haven't come to a live stream, what are you doing, man? It's like this, but better. So what's going on? Why am I making this video? Why am I saying that Fortnite feels cheap, especially after glazing Epic Games for as long as I have, right? It's for a few reasons. We're going to go over all of them, but I think we have to start with the most important one. It sets the table here. And I think that, honestly, culturally, Fortnite right now just feels dead. And once again, this is a weird thing to say because the game is so much fun right now. Like, I'm enjoying the gameplay loop. I think the season theme is really fun. One thing that was a big gripe for me last year that I talked about was how Fortnite wasn't committing to the performance. It wasn't committing to the bit when it came to their Fortnite seasons. When you looked at Wrecked, when you looked at the Marvel season, Myths and Mortals, the problem was, like, you would have this really cool concept, and then it seemed midway through the season, Fortnite would just, like, drop it. Like, we would not lean into the full theme of the season for the entirety of it, and that became frustrating after a while. It's like you want to get invested into Greek gods or a car meta or Marvel superheroes, but there's just not enough content around that idea to really flush it out properly. But for the last two seasons, it hasn't felt that way. I do think that Fortnite has done a way better job this chapter of sticking to season themes, even to a fault when it comes to things like Star Wars. But if what I'm saying is true, why does the game feel dead culturally? I think the first catalyst on this list might be the most important, which is Fortnite content. See, there was something interesting I discovered before I did the stream last week with Pro Zero, Jay, and Loot. By looking at the data of all the player counts over the course of the last 3 years, it looks like Fortnite's average player base has pretty much stayed about the same. Yes, it fluctuates by a few 100,000 here and there, but that's normal. Generally speaking, we're holding better numbers than we did all the way back in Chapter 4. Why is this important? Because it tells me that Fortnite's player base is staying roughly the same size. It's not growing or expanding. But we are keeping a consistent, healthy player count of about 1.1 to 1.5 million. Now let me say this, I think that Fortnite is actually keeping a good chunk of the same exact players that it's always had. Not that we're getting no new players whatsoever, but I don't think it's as significant as people think. I think a lot of the players have been around at least since Chapter 3, maybe even Chapter 2, and there are a good chunk of players that have been around since Chapter 1 like me. In essence, the people that are playing Fortnite right now are the ones that have been invested in the ecosystem for a long time. Now, why is it that I think that? Last year when I went to FNCS, I had the privilege of talking to the head of competitive Fortnite. One of the most interesting details that he pointed out was that the people that are playing competitive Fortnite now, which at that time would have been Chapter 5, they're the same people that have been playing competitive for the last few years. In other words, they weren't getting any new people invested in the competitive Fortnite ecosystem. Now, at that time, Ranked was doing way better than it is right now. But even back then, with better player numbers for Ranked Fortnite, they were not able to drive enough people to be able to play competitively. I'm willing to bet that if they were having trouble getting new people to play competitive, it might be a similar situation when it comes to overall Battle Royale. Not as bad, but I think there is something to that about not being able to get enough new blood into the game. I think the main audience that Fortnite has right now are its hardcore player base, the people that have been invested in this game for a long period of time, at least 2 years plus. Doesn't mean that there are no new people coming in, but it's not enough to grow the game. And once again, the player count numbers make this very evident. But why is this important for Fortnite content? What does this have to do with YouTube videos or TikToks? Many creators have noticed a huge downturn in terms of viewership, not just for live streams, but also for videos. If you look at the largest Fortnite channels, they're not getting the same views that they were even about 12 months ago. But the thing that makes this weird is that Fortnite is still holding roughly around the same amount of players as last year, and even more players than 2 years ago during Chapter 4. If Fortnite is keeping roughly the same players, why is it that they're not watching Fortnite content? And that's because Fortnite content, I think, has gotten stale. I would argue that even includes my own. Fortnite content overall is getting to a point where people have seen pretty much everything. From the larger creators, you get the same kind of videos over and over again, sneaking into somebody's game, somebody's customs, pretending to be somebody at their house. I think there are a few outliers when it comes to different content ideas. Like I like when Courage and Cypher host these custom tournaments where they invite smaller creators like me to play. I think stuff like that is cool, but I don't think it's enough. That's a step in the right direction, but it's not exactly where we need to be right now. And listen, once again, it's not just the big creators. I even think for people like me, people that make commentary content, it's just like, I ask myself this question all the time: how many more ways can I complain about what's wrong with Fortnite or talk about some kind of issue with the game or the community? And if I'm being honest, like I'm kind of tired of it. That's one of the reasons why I started doing Fortnite storyline content, because that's a bit more interesting to me right now than talking about everything that's wrong with Fortnite. But even when it comes to that, that's somewhat stale, right? Like, we've done storyline content for so long. That's where a lot of my origins come from as a content creator, doing Fortnite theories back in the early TikTok days. And it's not that there's not value in the content that I make or the content that you might be making or the content that Cypher and Courage and them make, but I do think that for a lot of us, especially the older creators that have been doing this for 3 to 4 years plus, I think a lot of us are getting burnt out, and that's why you're seeing some content creators transition to other games like Roblox. The views aren't there because the players are burnt out, and by extension, I think the content creators are as well. We're just kind of tired. I also think Fortnite fatigue is a real thing. The game's been out for 8 years, and there's no way you're going to be just as enthusiastic about the game now as you were when it first came out. I honestly feel like now Fortnite's perceived as more the cringe kids game than it is the crazy battle royale juggernaut that it once was. And look, even BR as a genre isn't as popular as it used to be, but it doesn't mean that it's dead. There's always going to be some utility to it. People love this genre. They love playing battle royales. And I think Epic is doing everything they can to keep theirs alive. This is why I don't think the game's going to die, or it is dying. The player counts are lower on BR because there's more options for people to play. Like, if you tally up all the numbers for just the BR base mode, so Blitz, Reload, OG, main battle royale between builds and zero builds, it's well over 300,000 players concurrent. People are still invested in the battle royale concept or the battle royale genre, but they just want to experience it in different ways. And each one of the modes that I referenced are a different way to experience that through the lens of Fortnite. But see, it's having all these modes that kind of gets into the next issue that I have with why Fortnite feels kind of dead culturally, because in a way, it almost feels like there's too many modes. Now, I want to phrase this as more of a question. Are there too many modes in Fortnite right now? And I'll be honest, I keep going back and forth on this. I don't know if I really have the answer. See, on one end of the spectrum, it feels like Fortnite is spreading itself thin. It's like, okay, we're keeping the same amount of players that we've had over the last 3 years, but we keep throwing in new modes, which means that if we are going to keep giving people more and more modes to play, you're going to further dilute the player base that you have. If you have a set number of players, let's say 300,000, and back in the day, 2 years ago, when you only had Battle Royale as your main mode, well, all those players are going to be on Battle Royale. But see, now you got to split that 300,000 between Reload, Blitz, and OG on top of Chapter 6. The reason why this is a problem to continue to keep giving us new experiences while not taking anything away is because you're going to make the current experiences that you have cheaper. You're gonna have to dilute the lobbies with bots because you don't have enough people to fill all the modes that you have. And look, it doesn't mean that there aren't gonna be some people with higher elo lobbies where they're playing mostly real people. Not everybody has the same experience inside of Fortnite, but you have to ask yourself the question, why is the conversation of bots an issue in this community? Is it because people are just making this up? I have people comment on my videos all the time saying, I have no idea how you guys are getting these bot lobbies. I haven't experienced bots in I don't know how long. I never get wins anymore. The game is really hard for me. For you, John, that's great. I totally understand that. Maybe you're just that good at the game to where you're in higher elo lobbies all the time. But for a lot of us, that's not the case. And that's the reason why we're having the issues that we're having and why we're having these conversations. Because I think for a lot of players, the lobbies are just flooded with NPCs and it's not an enjoyable experience. I also think from a community standpoint, like, we're just so much more split than we used to be. Like, back in the day when it was just Battle Royale, everyone was united on a common goal. Like we were all kind of talking about like what direction we wanted the game to go. And we might have had different opinions, but we were all looking at it from one perspective or through one lens because there was only the main mode to play. And then it all changed when the Fire Nation attacked. Okay, no. Then it all changed when we got zero builds added in. And I remember, you go back on this channel, you can look at my videos from the time when zero builds first came out, and I was in opposition of it. I'm like, you're gonna split the player base too much. And then after about a year or two passed, I was like, you know what? Zero builds thing is pretty cool. And we all lived. Then we got Reload, and it was like, ooh, we're gonna have 2 VR-based modes running side by side, and they're both gonna have builds and zero builds. Let's see how it does. And it worked out, and it was okay. And I fell in love with Reload. I'm like, all right. And then it was announced we're getting OG, and it's just like, what are we doing? Can we slow down a little bit? Like, what's going on? Like, why are we adding so much stuff in? Here we are months later, and a lot of people have come to the realization that I had when the mode was announced. Like, it definitely has devalued like the OG feeling, how special OG was, because it's available to everyone all the time. That's the thing people don't get. It's like the more you expose somebody to something, the less significance it has over time. Like you as a person, if you want to stay invested in that thing, you have to figure out new ways to make it exciting for yourself. But dialing this whole thing back to the original point, I'm just sitting here wondering, like, do we have too many experiences, specifically battle royale based experiences, inside of Fortnite? When I look at the other end of the spectrum and why it's a good thing to have all these modes, I've even admitted on stream, having all the different VR based modes definitely keeps me on the game longer. Like I might start my day off playing Blitz, and then I'll go play some Chapter 6, and then I'll go play some Reload, and then if I'm feeling really frisky, I might jump into a few rounds of OG. I think that that's the benefit to having all of these new modes. Like you are keeping us on the game longer, and the longer that we're on the game, the more likely we are to spend money. So in that aspect, it is good for the player base, but it's making me think, can we add any more modes in? Like right now, I honestly think we're at a good amount, like 4 BR based modes. Even though I think Blitz and Reload would probably be better as LTMs, I still like them inside the game permanently. Like it does, like I said, keep me on longer. But I feel like if they start adding like a 5th or a 6th mode, that's when we're gonna start running into issues, because you're gonna just run the lobbies even thinner and thinner and thinner. And I will say this too, as of right now, Chapter 6, it does seem like I have less bots in my lobbies, which is really nice. And I'm not a crazy, cracked out of my mind player. I feel like I am getting to fights consistently with really good people and people around my skill level. Sometimes there's some people that are really good, but that's not the norm necessarily. So this question of, does Fortnite have too many modes right now? I want to table that and leave it for you guys to answer in the comment section below. Also, this is your time to put code Clark in your item shop, because if you made it this far into the video, you know you love the content, and you should have my creator code in that bad boy always. And like the video, because I need more views. Okay, let's be honest. Let's get the views up on the channel, bro. You know, since we just talked about like diluting the player base and having more lobbies that have to be filled with bots, the more modes we add as we keep the same amount of average players on the game, it's making me think about the other big issue that Fortnite has, which is that like a lot of Fortnite's feeling or significance has been lost. And it's not because of the metaverse or all the creative maps or how bad the UI is, even though the UI is definitely something that needs to be improved upon. Like that's something that definitely needs to be changed. But I think it's more of just like the overall like difficulty of Fortnite. Like I feel like in a lot of ways difficulty has been removed from this game, and that's probably one of the most damning things to Fortnite culturally. Like once again, when you have too many bots in the game, it causes a problem because wins are cheap. But look, it's not just the difficulty of winning games either that's been kind of lost. It's also the difficulty of grinding out battle passes. Now, this one's going to sound weird, but I do think there was something to when challenges were a bit more difficult and grinding out battle passes were a lot more difficult. How it was back in the OG days, back in Chapter 1, for example, Omega Knight or the Omega Lights, right? Or let's say Golden Peely like Loot Station has, right? Those were insanely difficult things to do. Like you really had to know life the game at that point to in order to get those cosmetics. However, I will admit this, it did make those cosmetics mean something. Like look at Loot Station's channel, his entire brand is centered around grinding the game, XP, and teaching people how to do that. The funny thing is, it's like in the modern day of Fortnite, where it's so easy to level up through all your passes simultaneously, which I also like that feature. I think that's good. It kind of gets rid of the need for people to actually have to look at XP maps, or like we pointed out in the live stream last week, It gets rid of the need for people to have to look up how to do challenges because they're all so simple. I'm able to get through my entire battle pass, get to level 200 by the end of the season just by playing a couple hours a day, and I haven't had to do challenges in years because the challenges are so simple. The challenges might as well be just play Fortnite. Destroy X amount of structures or kill X amount of people or place top 10 X amount of, like, all those things are super easy to do, especially once again when the lobbies are full of bots. How easy is it to place in the top 10 times when everyone you're running across is an NPC? It just naturally takes away any of the tension that's in the game, but by extension, it also makes grinding so much less significant. And to that point, I also think that, like, cosmetics, right? When looking at battle pass cosmetics, I just feel like they're also a lot cheaper than they used to be too. Not in the sense of costing money, but just in, like, obtaining them. Like, it doesn't really mean anything when I'm leveling up through my battle pass anymore. Back in the first 2 chapters of Fortnite, grinding out battle passes really meant something. Like, you really felt like you were missing out on something if you didn't get through the entire thing. And there was a certain level of fun to that. Like, all my friends really enjoyed playing Fortnite and grinding the battle passes and, like, finishing it a day or 2 before the season ended. Like, oh my gosh, bro, I got it done. I did it. I got the battle pass knocked out. Okay, all right, I'm ready for next season. And the next season would begin and you would restart the whole process. I don't know, it was just a different time, a different mindset. The way that we looked at battle passes was different. Honestly, that a lot of that had to do with the exclusivity of it. I think, honestly, the last time when we were having all the battle pass debates and everything, I think a lot of people misunderstood a crucial aspect or a crucial standpoint of my perspective. If Fortnite ever brings back old cosmetics, I don't think that people should not buy them. Like, I think that if, for example, let's say that the Chapter 1 Season 2 Battle Pass comes back, they put Black Knight in the item shop. Please, by all means, I think you have every right to buy that. My position was just to keep those things special, not just necessarily for the OGs that were there at that time, but also for the culture of the game and the community. And I honestly think that Renegade Raider coming to the item shop in many ways proved my point. That skin came back out, everybody, including myself, bought it, and then after we bought it, nobody cares. You barely see anybody running that skin anymore. Doesn't mean that nobody runs it, but you barely see anybody running that skin anymore. It's lost all cultural significance within this game. You don't see anybody making Renegade Raider videos anymore. Like, it just doesn't mean anything. And a lot of people are gonna say, well, that's great. Yeah, just devalue all the cosmetics. They shouldn't mean anything anyway. If it has to be exclusive for it to mean something, then it's not worth having in the first place. And it's just like, I think you're kind of missing the point. That is what makes the cosmetics special. But if we go against that in the future and everything is open season, so be it. But I would argue, I think Fortnite will lose something if that happens. And honestly, I think that Renegade Raider coming back to the item shop, I think that had an impact on the culture of Fortnite in a tremendous way that not a lot of people want to talk about or willing to admit. I honestly think that after that, cosmetics just felt cheap. That and also making battle passes non-exclusive to the season. We don't need to get into all that today because that's not what I'm trying to get to here. I'm not trying to attack anybody or make anybody else feel bad because their perspective is different than mine. I'm just trying to relate to you how I think culturally this game is just hurting right now. And I think if you look at everything that I've talked about in this entire video, I think the best way to sum it up is this. Fortnite has honestly just become too easy in a lot of ways, and I think that's what's killing the game culturally. I know a lot of people say they don't want to feel like they're clocking into a job every time they play Fortnite. They don't want to have to sweat it out and grind it out and all that. I get it. I've heard it a million times. I understand where you're coming from. But at the same time, I think as gamers, generally speaking, if you're picking up any video game, you want some kind of challenge. It doesn't matter what kind of game it is. Any game that's worth playing has some kind of skill gap or skill curve to it. There's some kind of strategy involved. And once again, different games are gonna have varying levels of skill ceilings and skill gaps, but I do think that gamers of any kind, whatever game you're playing, whether they be virtual or physical, you want a challenge when you're playing it. And if you make things too easy, you're going to devalue your game. That's why games like Elden Ring are so popular, right? Because they are hard. I've said this before in the channel. When you look back at early Fortnite, the old stream days, when you watch Ninja and all the other content creators play, it was exciting to watch them because they were doing things that the average person couldn't do. The average person couldn't get a 15 bomb game or a 20 bomb or let alone a 40 bomb. But now with the creation of bot lobbies, it's insanely easy. Old cosmetics coming back that were only available for people who play the game at a certain time completely destroys their cultural significance. I don't know, maybe I'm just selfish, but I like a challenge. And I think a lot of you guys too. And you can let me know in the comment section down below if you feel the same way as me or if you disagree, I don't know. But I tell you this, I'm going to go to France. I'm going to talk to some content creators. I'm gonna ask them what they think is wrong with Fortnite right now, how they feel about making Fortnite content, how they feel about the direction of their channel. Do they feel like their content has become too monotonous? All this important stuff. I want to do this for you guys instead of a vlog this year. I think that this would be a better piece of content, and I think it's needed right now because of where the community is at. My life has been changed by playing this game and by meeting y'all and by making the content that I'm able to make, and I'm very thankful for all you guys. So anyway, I'm gonna get this bad boy edited, chopped up out for you. That way you got this for Saturday, and then I gotta get ready for my trip. I love y'all. I will see you when I get back. I have a feeling it's gonna be a wild time. I'm kind of excited, so we'll see. Anyway, love y'all. Stay positive. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.